And hello and welcome to Zwischen Workshop 5. And my name is Steve Allen, aka That Looks Queer, and I'm an art writer and critic seeking to uplift the work of LGBT plus creatives in the north of England. You can find me at Looks Queer on Twitter and at That Looks Queer on Instagram. I'm here this evening with Chella Quint, a writer, designer, performer, educator, and the UK's leading expert on menstruation literacy. And I'm also here with my mum, Annette Allen, who shall be sharing her experiences of the menopause. So, without further ado, I shall pass along to Chella.
Hello.
Hello there. It's a pleasure to see you again. I'm trying to remember. Our first meeting was, I think it was at the
Edward Carpenter
birthday party, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was, how long ago was that though now?
I think that would have been July last year.
I can't believe that. So that's almost a year ago. And yeah, time has flown. It was a great event.
Yeah,
I really appreciated
good.
you coming to my stall because I felt really nervous. I was really nervous, like setting up a stall, because it's like, then you're like trapped behind a table and people have to come to you. And I wasn't selling anything. I was just talking about periods. So it's not even like a really good car boot where people can browse. You know, it was like people could come over and be like, ooh, or just carry on doing the other events. Like there was a photo booth, which I found riveting. So, you know, why would anyone want to stop by and talk to me? So I really appreciated it. Thank you.
Oh, it was great. I remember, can you remember the movements to the period lambada, wasn't it, or something that you were doing?
It was a mambo, but it was a Latin dance. Very well
menstruation mambo, that's it.
Yeah, I can teach that to you. I think I have enough examples to show you of what some of them are. And if not, we can make them up. Yeah, I have a bucket. This is my menstrual bucket.
Ooh.
So I can see what's in my menstrual bucket. So, yes.
Wonderful.
As we planned, you wanted me to talk about my work for a bit, didn't you?
Yeah, but again, the whole point of this is that it sort of is a little bit mad, a little bit woolly and wibbly. So it goes where it goes. Don't worry about it.
Well, I'll talk you through sort of my work, but have you got some images you can share?
Yes, certainly. This is where we do the
share an image.
Yeah, this is where we do the share screen a bit.
Talk you through it.
La 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 la.
That's the screen sharing song. You've got your own theme tunes. This is great, Stephen.
No worries. Right. So are we okay at that image? I've got a number of others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You show an image and I'll talk about it. I've just realized I can't see anyone else. So I'm going to go to gallery view and then there everyone is. So, so this image is one of the first images I took of the Stains TM campaign. So that is a design and activism campaign that takes period leaks and the fear of leaking on your period and menstrual stains, and instead of believing the language of advertising that has told us for years that menstrual products will protect us from leaks and stains, and that this is like the most horrendous thing that can ever happen to you in public, and turns it into a commodity. Suddenly, Stains TM is a product that exists, and it is a removable stain that you wear in your clothing as like a logo or an emblem, as famous as the Nike swoosh, that turns periods into an object of beauty, an object of desire, high fashion. For a while I was calling it clot couture, but some people thought that was too gross, so I settled on leak chic. And it was about, you didn't need to use real blood to reclaim. You could just simulate leaking to remind people that period stains didn't need to be secret and should be more valuable, because like menstruation and reproduction were more valuable than all of the marketing of like the last 100 years put together. And the reason I did this was because it was sort of the culmination of several years of analyzing menstrual product adverts and acting them out in a fanzine called Adventures of Menstruating, in zine readings and a comedy show of the same name, and in workshops with anybody that would come to a lady festival or a squat or like a queer bookshop in New York or anywhere. And eventually they became a bit more mainstream, where I was actually doing my master's research on how to take these techniques and these comedy sketches and turn them into lesson resources to use with teenagers. And I was teaching drama at the time. And then when my school sort of found out that I was doing all of this sort of like punk rock outsider art, they said I could use some of this stuff to look at a master's degree, which I was already doing part-time and looking at literacy, but I wasn't specifically looking at menstrual media literacy. And then my findings from that led to me developing this concept of period positive places. So period positive was an idea I already had. And I think do you have the period positive logo?
I do. There we go.
Great. So this was actually one of the outputs of the appendix of my master's in education, which I did at Hallam while I was teaching in Sheffield. And this logo was sort of like like a smiley blood droplet, was something the kids wanted. They wanted like teachers and schools and anybody really to sort of wear this as like a symbol that they were someone you could talk to about periods, because their main issue was they didn't trust anyone. And Chris Boble is an associate professor in Boston who has researched a lot about menstruation, menstrual activism, and responses to period poverty, and how to do it well and how to do it badly. And she's seen that the best work is by people who are, and she uses this phrase, trained and trusted. And trained and trusted is sort of what period positive logo schools, organizations, resources embody, that you are willing to talk about menstruation openly and honestly, that you fact check, that you're inclusive and intersectional in your work, and that you're not upholding this sort of paradigm of periods are dirty, stains are scary, and none of this should be talked about. So that kind of grew out of the comedy and the activism. And so the period positive project has been going since 2012 or so. And before that, it was just a phrase I used and then a hashtag on the internet, something I said to promote my shows. But the zine started in 2005. So for the past 15 years, I've been doing this work.
I have images of the zine, but that may require me to come out of the screen share and back in. So excuse me while the technicalities.
Well, while you're doing that, I can ask people what I always ask at my shows, which is think about how much you know about menstruation and think about how comfortable you are nowadays talking about it with others. And then think back on how you first learned about periods. So it doesn't matter if you've ever had a period. It's more about how you first found out what they were and how confident and knowledgeable the person telling you about it was. But this is like sort of a more recent way I have of talking about it. Back in the day, I was just focused on putting periods where they weren't. So menstruation in like a DC comic book cover. So it's ISIS. And the tampons were originally beams and missiles. So I just photoshopped it very badly. That's a terrible Photoshop. I used a really, really low production values image. It was a terrible idea. But I was really pleased with the result and I haven't touched it up. That is the first issue cover and a print. And I guess if you keep going, I can talk about each issue's theme.
Yeah, I'm just have one person who's arrived late, so I'm just admitting them.
Oh, okay.
Apologies.
Oh, let's leave that image on. That's cool.
Now, there we go.
Cool. So that's issue 2. And it's like putting periods into like pulp novels. So that, again, just tiny Photoshop. But this was the leakage horror issue where I had people write in and write leakage horror stories, but the stories had to end redemptively. You know, you could talk about periods and what leaking meant and what the overall outcome was. It wasn't like those sort of just 17 paragraphs that are like, oh God, I was embarrassed in front of my boyfriend and now it's all over. So there had to be more to the story. I asked people to like unpick what this meant more. So the zines were really a dialogue between me and other artists and writers and zinesters, because every issue I'd ask for contributions, people would contribute, get a copy of the zine. I always swapped issues with other people making zines and started a collection of other menstrual zines that I would take around to events, and it's called the Mobile Menstrual Zine Library. Not all of this, I was doing other projects that weren't just about periods, but every year or so, I would come back to this title and create another issue based on either new developments in like the world of menstrual product advertising or sort of things related to the time. So this was the menopause issue, which I called the wartime special, because people who I knew who were baby boomers were going through the menopause and talking about it with me. And also Menopause the Musical was touring, and The Guardian did a terrible review of it. And I noticed like everybody did a terrible review of it, but that the reviews were mean. Like they made fun of the weight of the performers and the quality of the songs. And actually I'd gone to review it and I'd had a really good time. So I wrote like a response review for The Guardian, sort of saying like, why are you making fun of this? Like, let's have more menstrual art and let's have more like menopause musicals. So that was that issue. And then it kept going on every year. You can sort of flick through them faster if you like.
Yeah, no worries.
So each year, this was about skirts and braids and silk and oh, there was a fourth thing. There was the words on the adverts that year were all about like sort of bling, menstrual bling, and it kind of started making people feel like menstrual products were fashion, but were also a necessity. Like you'd be naked if you didn't have them. And there were all these the disposable companies, reusable products, like weren't really even sold in shops then. Like you sort of started being able to get Moon Cup brand menstrual cups in Boots, like only a few years ago. And then if we go on to the next one, so this is the science issue where I started interviewing researchers from the Society of Menstrual Cycle Research, the Society for Menstrual Cycle Research. And these folks are sort of all interdisciplinary experts in menstruation and who meet every 2 years for a conference. They're amazing. I got invited as a keynote speaker to the conference a few years after this. And then I joined the society. It was just really cool to meet other people who talked about periods, who were from like lots of different fields of research. But this was sort of the celebrity issue as well. Lots of people contributed to it who were also well-known writers. And this is where the Stains campaign debuted in this issue.
Yeah, I love this. I just love the design of this one.
So this is when they started looking really like magazine covers. So the previous one was like a wedding magazine. This is sort of like, I don't know, like Cosmo or Redbook. And it's the performer, Kitten Von Mew, is a burlesque performer who does vintage burlesque. And she was perfect for sort of looking at vintage ads. So she's been a cover model for several issues. And it's always really fun to work with her because like she always has the right images. So it made it really easy to sort of mock glossy magazines. Now, zines aren't usually glossy. They're usually photocopied, you know, A5 stapled, maybe one color, maybe several colors, but you tend to sort of print stick them together. And I remember friends looking at my zine and going like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing these like high gloss full color covers? Like, this is like, who are you? Like, you're some kind of jerk for like making this too expensive that like you can't even afford to sell them. And that was kind of true. Like I worked so hard to keep the cost down because I tried to only sell them for the cost of printing because that's kind of the aesthetic of zines, but they were really expensive to make. But I found a really cool zine scene guy from Sheffield called Martin Lacey, who used to be in They Must Be Russians, who printed NMX scene in the sort of post-punk era in Sheffield. And like, I didn't know that that's who he was. He was just a guy I met who had like a really good sort of ethical printing business, who used like sort of plant inks and things, but who also could give me a really good price on full color covers. So he was really kind about every year I would try and do it a little bit better based on his recommendations. So like the first year I had this horrible low res image and he was like, that's not going to print very well, you know, at A5. You might want to like make it bigger. And then the next year he was like, you know, it might be better if you sort of put the front and the back cover on one sheet and like I rotated it and enlarged it. I was like, okay. And then the next year he was like, you know, it might, if you're doing such a big print run, it might be cheaper if you get the printing done at the same time as the covers rather than you sitting home collating and stapling them yourself. you know, I can do it in a machine, and then you'll have enough to take on this tour with you. So I was like, okay. And then he's like, you know, like editing in Microsoft Publisher, you know, isn't that great for doing re-edits? You might want to start learning like, you know, like Adobe or, you know, a different kind of software. And it was really cool because like through that, I started like kind of learning graphic design on the fly, to the point where like I had like a natural eye for graphic design analog stuff, but no idea how to do sort of prepare, you know, like prepping digital printing. Like I could do cut and paste, I could do flats. And I learned a lot through that. It was very low key, kind of, I don't know, like almost, it was very subtle. It was almost accidental, but it was like a kind of combination of Martin wanting an easier time and also the kind of teaching style that's really laissez-faire, you know, like I was like on a voyage of discovery, and I was able to start doing a lot more of my own like graphic design commissions through learning how to use the software, through trying to get my zine to print better. So, you know, by issue 6 and issue 7, it was so much easier, and I'd got, you know, a good reliable computer, and it was just much easier doing like a student membership with Adobe because I was studying. It was just so much more chill. So that was the most recent issue, even though it's from 2015. But that was the first time I put me on the cover because I wasn't keeping my identity a secret anymore. I was like, it was all in the mainstream. Like my school knew what I was doing. I was making fun of big companies, but they were asking me for advice. So like, it was pretty weird. Like, I was invited to like give talks and things at universities and, you know, to a few menstrual product companies. Some of them I turned down, some of them I did. But it was like, it was really interesting. And more people were talking about periods. I think 2015 was called the Year of the Period in the US by, Newsweek magazine. And a few colleagues from the Society for Menstrual Cycle Research were interviewed for that. And it was really neat. But I think I'd identified that like all of my art and activism had an education and social justice element to it. So whatever my project was, like if it was wind turbines, it was like about, you know, sustainability. If it was the planets, it was about like news media and support for NASA and like space exploration. And I did a piece about puffins, but that was about you know, being neuroatypical and feeling awkward, but it was about puffins. And so like everything I do has this focus, because like I kind of want to look at sort of unwritten rules and tacit knowledge and taboo, and how it affects people sort of through their sort of life transitions. And periods are, you know, life transitions. They're about puberty and you know, fertility and reproduction years, and menopause years, and postmenopause. And there are lots of sort of natural life cycle transitions caught up in that, but they made me think about it more broadly. And now what I'm doing, as well as still doing all the period stuff, which I'll tell you more about at the end, is I'm doing a PhD looking at broader attitudes to aging and the life cycle, and how sort of wider cultural taboos and media messages can affect our agency and our decision making. But I'll talk more about that at the end.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So we are about halfway through, so I think that now would be the good time to have a loo break or a tea break. So if everybody feels like they need to sort of have a bit of a stretch the legs, or to go and have a little bit of a rest, then I think we'll have sort of a 5-minute break, do we think?
Be a chance for my cat to have a nap just behind me, I think.
Yeah,
well.
that sounds good. So yeah, and then when we return, it'll be Mumsy sort of chats with regards to her experiences of the menopause and some questions therein. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Great.
Back in 5.
I'm really interested in your work.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm interested in your work. What have you got there?
Yeah. Well, I'm working on an animation that I showed last week through the same.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. I'm working
So,
on 3 terrible deadlines, so I've had to miss last week's, but I really
yes,
want to see it.
right. That's right. I'm doing a PhD with the Northern Film School.
Oh, fantastic.
I did fine arts back in the 80s.
Where was
and I was
that?
an English and drama teacher for 20 years.
Oh my goodness, we've got the same background. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah. No, I can see there could be a possible project that we could work on.
That would
Looking
be
at those
amazing.
images.
That would be so cool. So what are you working on right now? Just like quick one. I'll watch the whole video from last week, but the short version now so that I can know.
Oh, have we got time for me to share a screen, Steve?
I'll pop you on as a co-host. Boop, boop, boop. And we ought to be able to. So
Or can you just hold it up or move your camera for a second? Because I can almost see it.
No, it's a big digital.
We got a light board. Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Can you see
Okay.
that?
Yes.
So this is
cool.
This is work.
Oh, right. Okay. So is the purple part of the process of animating this person? Is it showing you like the previous frame?
Skin. So it's an onion skin. So if I play what I'm working on for you.
Nice.
Oh, hang on a minute.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Are we still in the break? Tom, do you want to see this? This is so neat. Come on.
Oh, thank you.
I'll play it again.
That's so cool.
This is 2 days work so far.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. So what's the, what, do you have like a 1-sentence theme of what your work is about?
I'm doing a couple of things. I'm working on my actual PhD. I'm working on an animated graphic novel. But this piece that you can see in front of you right now is called Lockdown Voices.
Oh, fantastic.
So I've been asking people to send me audio clips. So the clip that you're looking at now goes with a poem that somebody sent me. So it's experiences of lockdown.
Wow, oh, that's amazing.
Which I'm hoping at some point. So you could contribute to that, Chella, if you wanted to.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, thank you. Cool. All right. Thank you for satisfying my curiosity. I'm very glad I asked.
How are you, Chris?
Oh. I'm all right.
Wonderful.
Chris is still taking a break. You know, this is. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, water.
Yes.
On my peddler cup.
Are we all drinking water?
Yeah.
For now, at least.
Yeah. Team hydration.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, before we finish, can you please show a couple of the pictures that we didn't show, because they'll remind me to say other things that I've completely forgotten about.
Oh, ew.
Maybe a couple of the making bits of the stains, just before the end.
Do, do, do. Right.
So Period Positive Week is coming up in a week. It's the 18th to the 24th. And if you want to do Stains TM, you can go online to stainstm.com and trace the pattern. And the only rules are you follow the style guide, so you can keep the shape the same and call it Stains TM. TM's part of the name, but it is also actually trademarked. So I'm officially giving you permission to use it as long as you credit me and don't sell it. But you can make your own key ring or your own pin badge or like cufflinks I've made, and be part of the Stains TM street team for like the brand identity, you know, early adoption gang. Every now and again, somebody sees someone wearing it, or they know that I'm going to be at an event and they'll wear their Stains TM merch, and it's really, really cool.
You guys have a go at making some earrings. I can say, not necessarily.
No pressure. Like, we don't need to start an assembly line.
I can see you wearing some Stains TM earrings.
And but one of the cool things about doing the maker fairs with like with laser cut stains and like jewelry findings is that people that wouldn't normally talk about periods, that would talk about laser cutting, would come up to me and talk about laser cutting, and then I'd be like, right, here's some safety glasses and some needle nose pliers, start making something, and then we'd have a chat about periods. So I was sort of capturing sort of opportunities to speak to like loads of middle-aged guys and loads of little kids with like their parents. It was lots of fun. So, but the first maker fair I did, the people running it were like, now tell us a bit about what you're doing, and like let me know if it's definitely family friendly and if you've got any like plans for like awkwardness. I was like, well, I mean, it says period really loud, really, really big, like, you know, right over my head. There's a massive period stain on the banner. So if people don't know what they're getting into, they'll just be pleasantly surprised. But yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I think everybody hydrated.
Yeah.
Everybody aerated. Everybody cogitated. I think we'll be ready to recommend. And with that, welcome everybody. And here is my wonderful mother, who's kindly agreed to be, well, interviewed or to share her experiences with everybody about going through the menopause. This is where myself, Chella, and by the way, Annette is my mum's name. It's weird. I refer to mum as mum, but I'm aware that you won't.
But my mum is also called Annette. So it's going to be really weird for me to be like, so Annette, like when did you... Oh, do you mind not sharing the screen anymore? Because I want to see your mum big.
Yes, certainly. Of course.
Thank you.
I've forgotten about that. There we are. Stop share. That's better.
So I kind of wanted to talk about menopause, but I haven't gone through the menopause yet. And I know that there's like parts to menstrual taboo that I encourage people to talk about themselves. And also parts that I encourage people to talk about if it's not their experience. So I'm working on a resource right now based on the zines, which is like how to have your own adventures in menstruating. And it's for people of all genders. So you don't have to have ever had periods to be able to do the activities. And actually one of them is like, you know, talk to a parent or grandparent or other friend or relative about their experience of menstruation. And then you said, Stephen, that you wanted to talk to me more about the menopause and that she wanted to talk more about it. And I was like, well, this is perfect because like, so this fits in with a lot of my work, but also a lot of the attitudes to like sort of reclaiming space in the Bauhaus movement. Do you want to like just briefly mention what you told me about like your inspiration for that? So that like when we talk to your mum about it, it sort of fits in.
Oh, with regards to the ceramics?
Yeah.
It was just the fact that Mum said at the when we were having the little bit of a chat that I was, I can't remember now.
I reminded you of somebody from the Bauhaus because I didn't want to do needlework or, you know, girly things at school. I wanted to do something else.
Marion Brandt was and remains
That's right.
to be one of my very, very sort of one of my heroes with regards to the Bauhaus, and one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated by it, because she's basically just a really, really intelligent, wonderful woman who basically stuck it to the sort of sexist ideologies that were going around in the Bauhaus. She sort of started off as a painter, and then went on to study metalwork with Laszlo Moholy-Nagy in 1924. But when she went into the metal the workshop, she was sort of purposefully given really sort of menial tasks to do.
Right.
They were really sort of dismissive of her work initially, and it's only through her sort of grit and determination that she, and the fact that she was really, really, really fucking good, that Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, who latterly became one of the masters of the Bauhaus, the sort of heads of it, that actually she created her own space, and latterly became the head of the workshop. And of all of the things that the Bauhaus did, she was instrumental in creating lucrative contracts for the Bauhaus that meant that it could fund itself. If it weren't for the design work that she came up with, I'm just going to share the screen now and share some of the designs that she came up with.
Have you got the teapot?
Yes, I have. I'm just going to bring that up now. Let's have a look. I mean, I'm biased because I love Marianne Brandt, but I just think that as a piece of modernist design that was well ahead of its time, I just think that it's great. What do you think?
It's I remember reading about this and realizing that the thing that it looks weird, but every single bit of it has a purpose.
Yeah.
So the tea strainer type bit is like an innovation. The handle like might look silly, but it's like heat resistant. So it's not just it's made of wood. And then the shape of it is round, but the base is like a trivet, like that's sort of built in.
Yeah. Sort of
So
a cross, so that it means that it remains perfectly balanced when the liquid is inside it.
Which is like, it looks cool and it's functional. So that's Bauhaus. But yeah, it's really nice. Like I'd buy that. I could see that like a replica of that, like in one of the shops in Sheffield.
Yeah.
Like it fits in with the stainless steel and the silver designs. But even equally in like the MoMA gift shop in New York, it's the sort of thing that it would be trendy now.
Yeah, that's the thing. It has sort of a timeless elegance to it, which again is, I am probably evangelizing and gushing, but again, as far as the link with my mum is concerned, as Mum said, when she was studying, sort of when she was in secondary school, I'm guessing
Many years ago.
we'll not go into that. It's not important. But and similarly to the Bauhaus, really, they were pushed towards sort of women's work, which was textiles and pottery,
right?
And even well, not so much cookery. But I suppose.
But that's true. When I was at school, we were only just able to take like wood shop, but like only on a rotation. All the kids took all of the things. But like a few years before that, the girls took home ec and the boys took wood shop, and that was it. But speaking of like timeless elegance and badass women, your mum
I couldn't agree more.
seems to have bucked that trend. So Annette, which feels really weird because that's my mum's name. Hi. What do you want people to know if you are reclaiming space about the menopause? Because speaking of bucking trends, I know because you told me yesterday you went through the menopause twice.
Yep.
So that's fun. But that's like, I mean, that's unusual. You've had an extra go. So you've had a chance to have two different experiences yourself and reflect and compare. So like, I wondered what what you want people to know about this most of all?
My first experience wasn't very nice, but you can now get help. You can, but when I was 32, I'm a lot older than that now, I didn't know anything. I was just rushed into hospital and the operation happened, and I had to have a full hysterectomy at 32, and then kept in hospital, sent home, nothing, no paperwork, no nothing, just sent home and said, right, you know, you can't have, only thing they did tell me was that I wouldn't be able to have any more children, which I understood anyway, but nothing. And they don't tell you anything about losing your hair off your head, but it appearing in other places all over your body. They don't tell you things like that. I literally thought I was turning into a man. I literally didn't feel feminine at all. And it was just, you know, an awful situation. But, you know, I went back to see my GP 2 years after, and said, look, you know, there's something not right. And they just tried to explain to me and give me all these leaflets. And when I asked for the leaflets, they didn't give them me at the beginning. Right. And then I just, you know, started asking questions myself, and do I do this? Do I do that? And I did do it. But I was offered HRT, which I rejected. But a lot of people who I've spoken to, they have taken it and they don't think that they could survive not taking it, whereas I think the other way around. But that's my opinion. And then 2 years ago, I'll tell you my age, I'm now 57.
Yay.
And 2 years ago, I started experiencing some awful experiences.
And just to clarify, so you had a hysterectomy, but you still had one ovary. So you still had some hormones at the time. So between age 32 and now, that's when you've gone through sort of menopause for a second time.
That's right.
So you had a big hormonal change when you lost a lot of hormone production capabilities, but then the rest of it has gone recently.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and then 2 years ago, I went to the doctors again, and they did all these tests, and then they found out by blood test that I am now I am in the change again, as they call it. So I said, right, okay. I've now got a hoarse voice, which I never had before. So I don't know, you know, and they can't explain that. They just said it's something that your body's going through. Right. I have had tests for it to see if there's anything untoward, and touch wood, there isn't. So, but they don't explain to you how you feel. They ask you how you feel, you know, and you've got to explain everything how you feel, but they don't explain to you afterwards why you're feeling like that.
Right.
And that's
so
the questions
symptoms
that I am trying now to ask. So, but I mean, anybody can ask me any question, and I will answer any question. You know, how do you feel this? Do you feel that?
Liz, did you raise your hand there?
Do you want to ask me?
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Hello. No, well, it's more of a comment. I'm nearly 59 actually, so I'm round about your age, a little bit older. I took HRT, and it was the best thing I did. but I do identify with some of the things that you've just described.
Yeah.
And I think it's always pot luck in terms of how a medical practitioner will describe or empathize with what you're going through. I think I've been quite lucky with regards to that. And also, it never, I think that the menopause never goes away.
No.
It's always there. And
I thought it was a transition, isn't it? Isn't it a thing that, where your hormones fluctuate for a while and then settles down as you sort of hit sort of late 60s, early 70s?
I think it was that. Yeah, I mean, but you know, if you can say that the last 10 years have been a transition for me, then it's quite a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think it is, though. I think that's
I mean, that's not a transition, that's a lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, if you look at it, I guess you're in
yeah,
school for 12 years, maybe you're, you know, in your first job for a bit longer than that. Yeah, you're right. It's not just a transition.
Exactly.
It's a chunk.
Yeah. But there's quite a lot of things to do. I mean, some people actually have sprout more hair rather than lose their hair, actually. Yeah. I shave, actually.
But I have, like I say, my hair is better now than what it's ever been. But I am getting hairs everywhere else. Do you know what I mean? I've got a beard.
That's right.
I've got a beard.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah.
I've never had hairs grow. I've never had hairs grow under my armpits, but I've suddenly just started sprouting hairs under my armpits, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm from a very hairy people culturally, so this is not anything. But your experience when you were in your 32 reminded me of my sister and sister-in-law and other friends who have PCOS, who like, you know, had to start thinking about like hair removal and things because it wasn't like culturally acceptable for them to have facial hair. And
just to clarify, that's PCOS, polycystic
ovary syndrome.
Yeah,
that's right. And I mean, I know that feeling. Yeah.
These are all hormonal changes, though, and I think what I'm hearing is stuff that is reported in the conferences I go to through the Society for Menstrual Cycle Research, that doctors don't know enough about hormones, and that even research that's been done on reproductive health is, you know, doesn't have all the information. Like what really struck me about what you were saying, Annette, about how they ask you what your symptoms are, but they don't necessarily have all the answers. I mean, we are in lockdown for COVID-19 right now, and they don't know all the symptoms of that and don't have all the answers, but that is a novel virus, you know, that just sort of has only existed for a few months. The menopause is like part of a natural life cycle and has been since, you know, there were mammals, right? So why don't they know? Why are they asking you and then can't tell you why having a hoarse voice might be a symptom and losing and regrowing hair might be a symptom, and HRT might be healthy but might not be? And the latest research is showing that not only is the right combination of HRT sort of beginning to be evidenced in long-term studies as very helpful, but there's also some research on how in the past it was downplayed and the risks were built up.
That's right.
So the information you were given that made you base your decision on that was like sort of accurate at the time, and so were potentially the bits of misinformation. They were sort of quite pervasive. So lots of people.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to go. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry?
I'm sorry about that. Can we
It's so nice meeting you.
Yeah. Let's keep in touch. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. We will.
Bye.
All right.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Annette, I was going to ask you how, if you could make a list of things that doctors should have said to you, what would be your top 3 things then and now?
My top 3 things then would be, if I was to ask them, question.
No, like what would, if you were your GP,
Yes.
then what would
Right.
you have wanted them to say to you? Like what would you have said to past you as a GP?
Oh, gosh. I would have wanted them to say to me, you know, your body is going to change, which it did. They never said anything like that. I would have wanted them to say to me, you will feel like this, but you will feel better. Do you know what I mean? This is what's going to happen, but you will come through it and you will be fine. And then I would have liked them to have said to me, because as well as having the hysterectomy, I've had to have other operations since then because of what happened when I had the hysterectomy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I've had to have a bladder. I've had to have my whole bladder lifted back up. I've had to have surgery for to remove cysts and things like that. You know what's grown because of the hormones and one thing and another, and they just don't give you enough information about what is going to happen. Do you know?
So if you knew what to expect.
Yes, that's right. If I'd have known what to expect and what was coming, I would have been prepared for it, but I wasn't prepared at all.
That's so sad. That's so frustrating to hear.
Yeah.
But what's amazing to me is the things you've said, which I wasn't expecting you to articulate that way, are exactly why we taught about puberty at school. To tell kids what's coming, that it won't last forever and they will come out the other side like feeling less like emotionally wrought, and that their body's going to change. Like, so if you have good PSHE at school, if you have a good sex ed talk or a puberty talk, whether it's you or even at home, you know, if a parent tells you, don't freak out, this is really weird, but it's only weird for a while. And it means that if something goes wrong, like what happened with you, you know the difference between something going wrong and what's every day. But it looks almost like if doctors don't really know what to say, and culturally, like there hasn't been anything to tell us that menopause is not a big deal, then all you've got to go on is your own opinions and like hearsay, you know, or like if you're brave enough to have a chat with somebody else your age or older, they can tell you what's coming.
That's right.
But I really,
it's like Liz said, she's had HRT and she's fine with it. Me, I've not, you know, the doctors have just said, well, you can take it or you can't take it. Do you know?
They haven't given you enough information to make like
explained. And to me, what I've been reading about it myself, there's a lot of there was a lot of wrong reasons to take it because of cancer, and there is a lot of cancer in my family, you know, and there's there is a lot of cancers about, and I'm thinking, do I really want to take it? Do I really want to put my life at risk taking it and then having something else to you know to cope with?
And that is a message that was out there, sort of the weighing up the benefits of preventing like heart conditions with the risks of possibly exposing yourself to more types of cancer. Like that is sort of presented as a dichotomy to a lot of people. I think there's a lot of risks with hormones, and I think it's definitely worth talking about sort of all genders of people who have periods. You know, you can also take hormones to stop your periods, and a lot of people do, whether it's because they're transitioning or if it's birth control, you know, and there's only, like, you know, birth control pills were invented long enough ago and HRT was sort of developed as a treatment long enough ago that there now are long-term studies, but they're not really in the public domain. So I'd encourage you to look up some of the reports from the Society for Menstrual Cycle Research, because they've got like artistic responses to like, you know, what it feels like to go through the menopause from people who are academic researchers. And it also has sort of like big studies that take like the accumulation of other studies and put them all together in one report, sort of for a big analysis of like what the world now knows that it didn't know 20 or 30 years ago. And it's sort of, it's brand new research, which is really exciting. but by the time it gets to your GP, say, for an appointment you're having, it could be another year or two at the earliest. And that's if your GP, you know, doesn't have a hang up about talking about reproductive health, because everybody's a person in the end. And if they, like, you know, like us, had a good, bad, or middling experience of learning about periods and puberty, it, you know, that will color what they say and what they think to ask. And it's not just us. Like, my zine looked at attitudes to menstruation in the media, you know, because it's really easy to attack capitalism. Yay. But you know, it's also coming from, you know, history and religion and culture, and there's echoes of that now, but the echoes have been reinforced by, you know, marketing strategies for menstrual products and tablets, and like big pharma and what I call big tampon have got a lot to answer for. But the reason I focus on like menstrual literacy and sort of challenging sort of the current paradigm through like my art and my design work is that you don't know what you don't know, and it's hard to see it unless you step outside it. And the work I'm doing now is looking at whether future you could give advice to past you. And a lot of people do that. They sort of write letters to their past self, or they, you know, imagine visiting their past self. And people write letters to the future. There are a lot of artists and designers who do sort of, you know, intergenerational projects like that. But I've started looking at, we haven't got any good role models. What if time travelers are our role models? What if, you know, we have access to a time machine, but only in the future? So we get an email one day that future us is going to come visit. How do we adapt our house to like elderly us? You know, what do we do? Like, how do we explain to our kids that elderly us is coming to visit? What, you know, what do we like to do? Like, and it kind of, I'm wondering if thinking about things like that helps people think about aging in a more positive, healthy, and literate way. Because right now we sort of fear aging and we fear change, and we see it all kind of as negative and degenerating. Like, I don't know anyone that thinks that, like, you know, becoming elderly is a really positive shift of growth. But if you're 6, you really want to be 6.5. And if you're 6.5, you really want to be 7. Wouldn't it be great if, you know, and it's great when somebody who's 99.5 is like, I'm nearly 100. But like the middle bit, which feels like it's full of like drudgery and awfulness and like late stage capitalism and like, you know, I'm not really into late stage capitalism. But like just basically like class strife, like aging isn't fun. It's about all the crap work and responsibilities. So
some of it's all right, but some of it's
you
not.
promise. But like, I mean, I think so the project I've been invited onto for my PhD, which is I said I would talk about toward the end, is about the 100-year life. And if we are all going to live longer, like I think 50% of people nowadays who are born like this year will live to be 100. We can't just sort of, you know, grow up, have one generation of kids, get a job, you know, go to school, get a job, retire and die. We have to, you know, adapt and evolve and have the opportunity to train in lots of careers, maybe have several partners, maybe go back to uni 3 or 4 times, you know, maybe not like work at one job 5 days a week, you know, 40 hours a week, like maybe work at like a sort of a one type of job for a few years and then do something else, but not like lose our accumulated, I don't know, status. Like it be something you can dip into and out of, and that be a more socially acceptable thing. But right now, we're sort of stuck in this old paradigm. I mean, who knows, maybe what's happening with the coronavirus and sort of changes that are taking place will help like make that transition. But the research that I'm looking at is how media representation of aging and of adapting to change and going through transitions can be altered by sort of altering our frame through sort of design fictions and fantasy. But I've decided to call it time literacy because I think literacy is my favorite word. So if we had like menstrual literacy and menopause literacy, this would be easier. Just like reading literacy, we have the tools we need to participate. And without the tools, we can't participate with agency. We're sort of disrespected or screwed over or can't make choices or too afraid, we sort of freeze. And I think that's true about lots of things. So like, I really appreciate like having the chance to do that. And that's what I kind of encourage with the period positive work. The way I've left the period positive project is I've created the period positive pledge, which is like sort of 20 steps that you can take to sort of be more period positive and develop your menstrual literacy. So you can look at it on the website, which is periodpositive.com. But I sort of encourage people to find a thing that's a problem and work out what the basic building blocks of the literacy of that would be, because that will help you interpret it better and then work with it. And once you can work with it, you can improve it. So like Marion Brandt, like Marion Brandt did with the Bauhaus stuff, like she started out as like a lowly assistant in the metalwork like studio, and then became the boss of it, and then created things that like were like sort of globally renowned. So cool. So yeah, like Annette, if you can like teach me how to own menopause and sell it to myself, that'd be great. But in the meantime, I'm gonna keep selling period stains like they're going out of style.
Going out of style. What about
leak chic? It's leak chic, darling. Oh, so wait, I know what I was going to show you.
Yes, Dr. White's.
So this is what you said you wore.
Yeah.
Dr. White's leaf pad and belt.
Well,
So
can I
what's
just
great
tell you
about
that?
these is
Yeah, can I just tell you that I was 9 years old when I started my period?
Oh wow! So that's on the young side.
Can you imagine a 9-year-old girl having to go to school once a month wearing that?
So it, just in case anyone's wondering, like, so this comes off.
It does.
Right here. And all you do is, oh, it's got fluff on it. All you do is you just put it like that. It's really, it goes right around your ears. It's perfect. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm going out in the neighborhood. This is great. I had no idea. I'm not repurposing these.
Can you actually
this? I don't know. It doesn't quite cover my mouth and nose, but it is like a hammock for a Barbie doll. This is a large piece of equipment.
It is.
And the belt, I'm imagining your school skirt was elastic, and like your tights were elastic and your pants were elastic, and here's another piece of elastic. So you've just got like 4 stripes across your belly by the end of the night.
That's right.
The benefit to this is though, it goes around your waist, so you can keep this on and like change your clothes without it being a hassle. Whereas like the modern ones like kind of stick into your pants with adhesive. So here's a modern, I mean, I'm not assuming you guys don't have these or use them every day. I'm just in case the viewers at home want to know. So this is
with wings.
The modern kind with with wings, like in my zine, with wings. You can fly. So this is an aeroplane. This one's a rocket. So yeah, but like these are so they are improved. I just sort of think that like there was I was just writing an article about this. So disposable menstrual products have sort of commandeered the market for nearly 100 years. But in the 30s, there were briefly menstrual cups, and now menstrual cups are back. But in the 30s, that was when they were first introduced. So that was nearly 100 years ago. And I always get fluff in these just because they're like, they're all stored in the same bag. Sorry, not very hygienic. A menstrual cup, right? It's like a tampon that you can drink out of. I'm kidding. A menstrual, I'm sorry. A menstrual cup is used the same way as a tampon. It's an internal menstrual product, but it holds the blood rather than absorbing it like a sponge. This one's got a hole in it to show you that it's a demo model. It's not been inside a person. It is, they wouldn't normally, otherwise it would be a terrible design flaw. But the way you use it is, depending on the size of you and how strong your pelvic floor muscles are, you can get a narrower diameter one or slightly wider one. They're both quite small. They are bigger than a tampon when they're open, but when you fold them in half, they're smaller. And there are different ways you can do the fold, so that if you need like a thinner starting point, you can insert it like this and then release it inside. Just if you're using this, when you take it out, don't take it out like that, because it'll just go everywhere. But learn from my fail. I was really excited the first time I learned how to use them. Luckily, I was in a shower cubicle, so we didn't have to like call the CSI guys. But the design of it has a number of innovations now. Like there are some that you can open one-handed and release with a valve rather than tipping over. There are some that have a bell shape where it squeezes in a bit, so that if you have a shorter or lower cervix, you can make it a longer or shorter device. And then some come with like a little training cup to like teach you how to insert it, but it doesn't hold very much, so you can give it a go. And there are some brands that do like 3 or 4 sizes so that young women can use them as well, or young people who are cool with inserted products but want to use reusables. Like most people tend to start off with like a pad of some kind. But the latest innovation is period pants. So menstrual underwear is new. It's just got a lining with like a cloth pad style, which you can also
I've
get.
heard about them, but I've not seen them.
So these are cloth pads. You could, this one's magnetic, which is really neat. A friend of mine in Wales designed this one. So the magnet allows you to add more depth to the absorbency of the pad.
Right.
And then the wings stay on better. So this is for like a small pair of pants. But then this is a pair of pants itself. So they've got a thicker gusset.
Right.
I just thought gusset would make a lovely name. But then they just last a few hours. So you do have to change them, but the thicker ones last 7 or 8 hours. So like a whole day of school or work, or a whole night in bed. So there's these happen to be Modibody ones. There's my favorite brand happened to be Wuka. They are a company based in London by a girl called Ruby, who's really, really nice. And the products are really comfortable, look fashionable. Like they've got a really cool sporty waistband. These as well. Like the Modibody ones have got a really good range for teenagers that are just like cool looking pants in small sizes. And then they all go up to like plus sizes, and they've all got different absorbency levels. But the thickest ones from Wuka are my favorites for sleeping in on my heavy night. So if like, you know, you're looking at kind of environmentally friendly options for menstrual products, they're out there. But the companies that sell the disposables used to really dominate the conversation until there was more activism and more sort of grassroots designers and artists sort of kind of, you know, taking up space. So like they're kind of like the teapot of modern times, and it's really important to me.
Teapot of the 21st century.
Yeah, it's the menstrual cup. But it's really important to me to like not just gender it. Like, I mean, like sort of third wave feminism was what I grew up in. Second wave feminism was like my mum's milieu, and this work, the Bauhaus stuff, was happening during first wave feminism. So, or vice versa. But you know, first wave feminism was happening during the Bauhaus movement. But like modernism onward, all of this stuff was about art and innovation and change. And for me, the change bit, coming back to the menopause stuff, linguistically, is the most important bit, because I feel like the word innovation has taken on this like kind of corporate capitalist overtone, which it doesn't need to innovate and design something so that it works better, is about sort of the person and the people that are using it, and like society and community. And that's what feminism is about, you know, making sure that society and community work better for the people experiencing it. So yeah.
I've got one last question before I think we're going to have to wrap this up, which is to Mum. You know, when you said that the doctor said, you said the change, which is what they called it. Who was it that actually said that? Was it your GP?
Yeah.
And were they male by any chance?
No. It wasn't a male. It was well, I don't even know whether it was a doctor. It could have been a nurse. You know, one of these nurses that you go and see. Well, it's about ladies' problems and this, that, and the other. And I said, well, yeah, it is. Oh, well, we'll make you an appointment. And I went to see, and she just went, oh, well, you do realise that you are in the change. I says, well, I've already been through the menopause once. Well, yes, but that was an early menopause, and this is a proper one. And what's the difference between, you know, and this is what I can't understand.
It just seems like that entire conversation seems utterly and completely horrible.
So, but you know, after I have got an appointment well, I did have an appointment a couple of weeks ago, but obviously because of what's happening, the GP's surgeries aren't open. So I am going to see, oh gosh, what did they call it now? It's about, it's an appointment for a menopausal woman. That's what it's for me, for myself, for a menopausal woman to ask questions. And I've got an appointment at my GP surgery for me, being a menopausal lady, to ask the questions that I want answering. So,
and that's what that appointment is designed for.
That is what that appointment is for.
So that's new. That's cool.
So I mean, I did ring up and say this is what I want, and I want to be able to speak to somebody who knows something about the questions that I'm going to ask. Maybe
that's
me.
Brilliant.
So
That's
I
super.
thought,
Yay! I love your mum, Stephen.
I love it.
So,
I think creating the environment that you want yourself is like a huge deal, and it's annoying that we have to do it, but it's great to do. Like it's really empowering.
I'm very, very proud of you.
So I've just got to wait
That's
now.
wicked.
So the appointment is still there, but I've just got to wait until I can go.
Awesome. Now I know what to ask for.
Yeah. So I don't know whether it'll be male or female. I don't mind who it is. I can ask questions to anybody, and if anybody wants to ask me questions, I will answer them as fair as I can. So
I wondered if this was like, if Stephen, if you were just like really curious about stuff about your mum, and this was the only way to get her to open up, but like clearly not. Like this is excellent. Like this is so great. Thank you for like sharing your mum with us. I really like when platforms are like group platforms rather than like a solo thing. Like I get really self-conscious, even though I talk a lot. Like it's sort of my way around trying to like share with other people. But yeah, this is great. It's so nice meeting you. And this is really cool. I really value this project. And I've learned loads. Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah.
And once I learn or get the answers to the questions that I want answering, I will let you know.
If you want to do a zine, I can help you out.
Very good.
I would read the heck out of that.
Yeah, very good. We will do that.
We will do that, and we'll be in touch.
We will.
That sounds like a really, really good thing to do.
Does. Yes.
Oh, awesome.
So I might be able to help somebody else who wants to ask the questions that I'm asking.
Yeah.
Hasn't got the opportunity to ask them, so I will ask the questions that I want answering, and hopefully, touch wood, somebody will have the answers for me. Hopefully.
And if they don't, you can keep asking.
That's
till
right.
you get what you need.
That's right. That's
like
right.
prime menopause question time. We'll all mail in our questions to you, and you can.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wicked.
I think we've reached a sort of logical conclusion. It has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
and hopefully we shall see some of you next week. And with that,
thank you.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thanks so much.
Yeah, really enjoyed that.